Okay, I've finally found a moment to actually make a chess video. So it's been carnage the last 3 days. I'm on sole childcare duty. I've got two kids under 4. My wife's away at the minute, so it's been tough trying to get a chess video in. But I've stolen an hour here. I'm at my parents', so here we go. Now, this is the St. Louis Rapid. Day one's just done yesterday on Friday, the 26th of August. So today, the 27th, we've got day two coming up. And I'm looking back at one of the games from yesterday. Alireza Firouzja had black. He was playing Hikaru Nakamura with white. Let's have a look what happened here. Where's my keyboard? There we go. So knight f3 from Hikaru. Now he doesn't go for much in the opening here. So e3 played. Alireza goes knight f6 and now c4. And Hikaru is going for this kind of classic setup with pawn b3, bishop b2, the kind of thing we see a lot when he plays online blitz. So we had b3 now from Hikaru, bishop e7, bishop b2, castles, and now you can go down these lines with something like this. Say you go for some very standard kind of position where you play d4, and it's quite dry really, symmetrical kind of looking position. Well, not quite symmetrical pawn structure, but okay, there's not so much going on. But Hikaru goes g3 instead, so he's already trying to mix it up a bit. So he wants to fianchetto that second bishop, b6 from Alireza, bishop g2, bishop b7, castles, and now c5 played. So already black's basically equalized here. You've got two pawns in the center versus one for white. Queen e2 was now played by Naka, and queen c8 from Alireza. Looks a bit strange, but he's lining up this battery here with queen and bishop. So if you take here, which is playable, well then bishop a6 was potentially Alireza's idea. Pawn d3, e takes on d5, let's say. Okay, game goes on, it's just level. So Hikaru could have taken on d5. And at any moment now in the next few moves, he can take on d5 here. So he goes knight c3, we had rook d8, this rook came to c1, knight c6, and now he goes pawn d3. So if you want to take on d5, you kind of have to do it now or never. If you're going to go d4, you have to go now or never at some point. But instead we had d3, and Alireza finally says, okay, you're giving me all this space, I'm going to take this space. So the pawn captures, the knight takes back. We have some pieces coming off the board here. So the bishop takes on g2, king takes, and now this position's really interesting. I suspect someone like Anish Giri, sorry Anish, would be kind of taken with the rook here. And it's actually, I mean, it looks the most natural move because you've got this backwards pawn to attack, but it's actually very drawish because you can go queen f3 here, say the rook nudges back to d7, you're clearing off the square before the knight moves and the bishop attacks you, and you could have something like this, but white can slowly arrange d4 as the point, and you'd get this mass liquidation, very, very drawish kind of position. Possibly white could be a bit better with the 3-on-2 in the king side, queen side, but it's not much to play for. Anyway, Alireza doesn't retake with the rook, the more natural looking move. So he retakes with, where are we? Sorry, king takes on g2. He takes with the pawn here. So he's imbalancing the position. That's what I love about these fighting players, Alireza, Naka, Magnus, etc. So the best move here is actually knight e4, but you do have to see what you're doing after queen c6. This is probably why Naka rejected it. You can actually go queen f3. Now it looks like your pawn structure is getting a bit ruined because if you take with the pawn, there's this passer, or the queen, they swap off, then there's a passer. But there's this sneaky move, rook to e1, using this pin on the queen, and then you'll actually win the piece back without ruining your pawn structure. f5 can be played, but okay, it all gets kind of tactical. White should be fine or even a bit better. But Hikaru didn't go knight e4. Maybe he missed that kind of idea with rook to e1, etc. Not easy to see. So he drops the knight back here, but Alireza is definitely just a little bit better now. Look at the space he's got, more active pieces. So he gives a check. The king drops back, and now he actually gets this h-pawn rolling. So he's got attacking ideas. He wants to launch it down here. Knight d2 from Hikaru, and now pawn h4. And this moment's very interesting. Again, Hikaru's here to fight, so fair play to him. So he could play something like Queen F3 here. Very kind of steady move, just trying to trade off. Queen D7 maybe. Okay, not so much going on. But instead he takes on H4. So he ruins the pawn structure. Very ugly looking move, but he's kind of saying to black, okay, who's really attacking who here? I'm opening the G file. So the rook now came to C8. We had Queen F3 offering the exchange. Alireza ducks it here with Queen to A6. So he's possibly threatening to take here in some lines, but not too soon. He doesn't want to send his pieces in the wrong direction. So King H1 was played by Hikaru. So very simple, aggressive idea. Clear this G file. We now had Rook C5 from Alireza, and this is the really nice defensive maneuver. So this rook is hitting F5. Now the rook came to G1, rook F5, queen G2, and now knight H5 played, stops the checkmate, and these black squares are looking really, really dangerous now in this white position. So A3 was played, possibly Alireza would take there one day. Okay, Hikaru goes A3. If you take with the bishop, by the way, you're running into all sorts of rook A1 pins, not what you want. You're going in the wrong direction as well. So instead, the bishop takes on H4. So Alireza's regained his pawn. He's attacking this one. Hikaru defends like this. The computer shows here actually that knight e4 is the best move. Strange really that Hikaru didn't do that one. It looks so solid. But he did this one instead. G6 now played, very tidy stuff. Now the knight comes to e4, and now bishop e7 tucks back. Just a nice prophylactic move really. The job there is done, winning the pawn, and now the bishop tucks back. Loose pieces drop off the board, as they say. That one could one day potentially be attacked, who knows. Knight g3 now played from Hikaru, and when I saw this move, I instantly thought, well, do you not want to be jumping in here? But this doesn't work tactically, because now the queen slides into this square. Say the rook now drops back because it's attacked by the knight to here. Well, now the bishop's crashing through here, and so on. This is awful for black. So you do have to be a bit careful. So Alireza takes on g3. Hikaru can repair his pawns, very nice, but his king is still a bit exposed. This is a tender diagonal here. So b5 from Alireza, great move. Swipes at these pawns here, but also opens up the queen. And now g4 was played. You could exchange here, shatter the pawns, but black doesn't mind this too much really. I mean, the king's very safe here. Still, it's a better endgame for black long term. Even though you've got these pawns here, which maybe could become menacing, there's just problems with this bishop really. They could actually become targets for the black pieces. So it's always a better endgame for black here, basically. So g4 played. This one was captured off. Rook recaptures. Alireza takes here, and now pawn e5 was played, cementing the center, and this bishop's really struggling to come to life. So bishop c1 was played. Hikaru really wants to generate an attack if he possibly can here, because Alireza's got the advantages in the endgames, as mentioned. This is weak, then the a pawn could be running. So rook b8 now played by Alireza, great move, because now after queen f3, threatening to take on f7, Alireza jumps back, chops off the queens. By the way, the best move here was king to g1, because then if queen b7, you can go queen g3, duck the queen exchange, because the king's no longer in this line of check, with the pin. But after queen f3, queen b7, well, now Alireza, he's forcing off the queens, and the reason this is so good is then he gets this invasion as well. So not only has he got the better pawn structure, the space, the better minor piece, but now there's a pin going on here. So king e2 was played. F5 from Alireza, great move, captures here, pawn recaptures, and this is the problem, you can't take or your bishop drops. So these pawns are really getting rolling. So king d2 was played, and now Alireza chops on a3. He could also go f4 just to really box in the white pieces, but okay, he takes here, and you can't be taking back because then you lose your rook here. You've still got this pin going on. So c5 was played by Hikaru, and this is really an excellent move because it generates counterplay. Now Alireza took, but it wasn't the best move. Actually, king f7 was best because although white can take with check, look how quick this king just comes storming in now. So you still take the pawn here. Yes, you've lost one here, but you've centralized your king rapidly, and the a pawn is going to get very dangerous very fast. But okay, it's rapid, not always easy to see this stuff. So here we had chops on c5 by Alireza, the rook recaptured on f5, and now bishop d6 played, holds this pawn here. You know, the king is cut off in these variations. That's one of the key differences. And king c2 comes, Hikaru just starts to unravel. So he's still a pawn down, but there's definitely drawing chances here. So the rook dropped back, and now h4 from Hikaru. He gets that pass pawn rolling. Rook c7 check played, and now the computer wants king b1 here. You know, it wants to stay with this a pawn, it would seem, although I can see why Hikaru plays this one. You know, he wants to keep an eye on this d pawn whenever he possibly can. So rook f6 was, not f6, c3, sorry, was now played. Rook f6 now from Hikaru. I was looking at the next move. So he attacks this bishop here. If you take with check, well, then we can actually come in here and attack your rook. So you don't want to be doing that. So the bishop moved away. It came to a3 here. Whoops, yeah, came to a3. And now, again, you can't be capturing. We take with check, king moves, then we pick up here. This is a hopeless endgame. So Hikaru moves the bishop away, which is the correct move, but he should come here. Now, you lose the pawn, yes, but then king c2, rook h3, rook e6, and you're actually picking up this pawn by force. This is the key thing. So much better drawing opportunities for Hikaru. But what we saw in the game here was bishop to g5 instead, and this is a bad blunder. Because now when you take here with check, the king moves, the rook slides across to h3. Well, now if you try and come here to win this pawn, now the white king is actually coming under fire. So you can check with the pawn. Now the best move here is to come across to f2, but then we can go check, king moves, we come here, we hold the pawns, two connected passes plus the outside one, just pretty hopeless. And if you step back with the king to stay in front of the pawns, well, now the king is actually getting badly hunted. Bishop b4 is threatening mate here, as we can see, and you can't do this one, or then we do this, and you're forced to give up your rook. So after bishop b4, you'd have to slide the king across again, let's say, and okay, we can now give a check even, king b2, rook behind the pawn again, or you can even go a5. There's still a ton of attacking ideas here. So yeah, really good position for black. Once you actually play rook e6, try and come behind the pawns, then you can hunt the king. So this is really the big problem. So Hikaru chucks in a check instead. Now the king moves, rook f6 check again, king g7, and after king f2, just sliding across, attacking the rook, getting out of some of those attacking ideas. Well, now bishop e7 just finished the game on the spot. Here Hikaru resigned. Why did he resign? Well, if you slide the rook away, we can simply chop the bishops, say pawn recaptures, doesn't matter which. You can come here, protect the pawn, and again, your two connected passes plus your outside a pawn. This is just way too much. Hikaru respects Alireza too much to play this position out. So great win for Alireza. He picked up another win on the day and a draw, so he's got 2.5 points. I didn't actually check the standings, but I'm guessing he's top or joint top or there or thereabouts, unless someone won 3 games. Anyway, so a great day. I'm really enjoying this chess so far. I'll get another game up as soon as I can. If you want to see another amazing game between these two players, then click here. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you soon.